Thank you, everyone. Welcome to COTA SA. Welcome. And thank you for joining us today at this Zoom webinar. For those of you that are familiar with Zoom, this is a webinar format. So you're not actually visible on the screen, even though you can see us. And you're not visible to anyone else that's participating in this webinar. Your microphones are also muted, so we can't hear you. So if you sneeze or cough or talk to your dog, that's perfectly fine as well. So you can sit back and relax, enjoy your lunch while you listen to us chatting about aged care. If you wish to ask a question of us, you can do that in the chat box. So the chat box function is at the bottom of your screen. There's a little thing called chat. You can click on that, which opens up a chat thing, and you can type your question in there. We can see those questions and respond to them as we can. I'm Jermaine and I coordinate community programs at COTA SA. COTA stands for Council on the Ageing SA, but I'm sure you're all familiar with our organisation. COTA SA acknowledges the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains as the traditional custodians of the land our headquarters occupy. We also acknowledge all Aboriginal nations throughout South Australia. We honour Aboriginal people's continuing connection to country and recognise that their sovereignty was never ceded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal people. So COTA SA is an inclusive older people's movement and the peak body that represents the rights, interests and futures of the more than 630,000 older South Australians, which is about a third of our population. As a not-for-profit community organisation, COTA SA is independent and non-partisan, and we have our sights firmly set on calling out ageism, overcoming disadvantage and inequality, fostering respect for the diversity of ageing across our state, and offering unique programs that create new possibilities for and with older South Australians. And along with our range of engagement, policy and advocacy activities that ensure the voices of older people are influential, COTA SA offers services and programs and information that connects with more than 100,000 older South Australians each year and helps all older South Australians to age well. The plug-in, Strength for Life, COTA Visitors, the Rainbow Hub, the Flurio Neighbourhood Network, and Let's Talk Aged Care are some of our current programs. Let's Talk Aged Care in particular is a team of dedicated staff and volunteers that can share information and provide support to older people and their families and carers about the aged care system and more broadly about ageing well and living safely in your own home. These webinars that we're holding are part of the Let's Talk Aged Care programs. And so today we've got about an hour with you, and then again we've got some other webinars on Wednesdays, the 11th, 25th of May, and then also the 1st of June. And I'll be hosting each of those, and we'll be talking with different members of the Let's Talk Aged Care team to share their broad knowledge with us. We are recording this webinar today as well, so we can make this available to you later if you'd like it, and we can also send it to those people that weren't able to attend today. Again, you won't be seen in that recording, it's just a recording of us on the screen, and the chat box won't show up in that recording either. But we'll attempt to answer all of your questions that you put in the chat box. No question is silly. The chances are that if you've got a question, I'm sure someone else may have the same question as well. So please do ask those questions as you go. I'll repeat your question before we answer it so that other people are understanding what that's about. If there are lots of questions and we run out of time, hopefully we don't, but if we do, we'll try and get back to you with a response to those questions another time. So we are delighted to be able to share this information with you, and we hope that it helps you to understand and access aged care supports for yourself or your parent or your loved one. We're starting right at the beginning to look at aged care very broadly today, and where we actually start in the aged care system. So today I'd like to introduce Trudy Gore. Trudy is COTA SA's Ageing Well Coordinator, and Trudy has a wealth of knowledge and information about both aged care and also supports and services relevant to older people that might be outside of the aged care system. I'll be asking Trudy to share her knowledge with us today. Welcome, Trudy.
Hi,
Hi. All right, so Trudy, today I'd like to start, like I said, right at the beginning and assume that our participants may not have much knowledge about aged care, so bear with us if you do. In particular, I remember talking to one of my friends who was concerned about her mother that was living alone, and she had a concern that her mother started to have some difficulty doing the normal everyday things that we do in our home, like housework or shopping or managing health or whatever it might be. And my friend just sort of said, well, I need to get her into a nursing home. And that was a bit of a shock to me. I thought, oh, and it struck me, of course, that unless you know about aged care, we don't know what we don't know. So it's completely understandable if you've not had to use aged care services before, or be part, or have an older parent before, to not know what we don't know yet. So that was my friend's first thought about aged care, was that she'd have to find a nursing home for her mother, which was really surprising. And of course, we at COTA SA know that there's a lot more to aged care than just residential care, aged care. And in fact, most people we know, most older people want to stay in their own home, the homes that they've lived in all their lives, their family home, their familiar environment, and in fact, in the community that they love. So we know that. So today that's why I wanted to start right at the beginning today and say, well, what is aged care in Australia to start with? So Trudy, can you tell us, what is aged care in Australia? What does it actually look like?
So as you mentioned, many people want to stay living in their homes as they age, and some people need support for this to happen. So aged care is the support provided to older Australians in their homes or in an aged care home. And it can include help with everyday living, healthcare and equipment, and it's administered by the Australian federal government.
Yeah, sure. And so how do people know whether it's a son or a daughter, or someone that's caring for someone that's older, or an older person themselves? How do they know when they might need some aged care services?
So there are a variety of reasons. Sometimes, people are finding everyday things becoming more difficult or unsafe. For example, someone might have difficulty climbing a ladder to clean their gutters, or they may have difficulty bending down to clean their shower cubicle. Other examples are the person wants to get out and stay more social, or stay well and maintain their physical, fitness. They might not be motivated to cook meals anymore, or they no longer feel confident driving. So there's a variety of reasons, but it's all about balance. For example, if a person's spending all of their day cleaning their home and doing their chores, and they're not having time going out and being social or whatever, that might be a time when a person says, there's more to my life than just keeping my home clean and going to medical appointments. So if they had some help with the cleaning, for example, then they could go out and be more social. And I think it's about striking that balance so that, someone's living a whole life, complete life.
Yeah. So at that time, there might actually be a change that someone recognises. Yeah, right, okay. Oh, so how does the older person themselves, or their partner or son, daughter, whatever, how do you start the process? Where do you go first?
So My Aged Care is the entry point into the aged care system, and we've got their number here and their email. When you make contact with My Aged Care, the contact centre do a screening call with you, and they determine if you're eligible for government-funded services, or a person can also apply online by using that web link there. After a person has answered some questions, My Aged Care may organise for an assessor to make contact to arrange an assessment. The assessment will determine exactly what a person needs. So if it sounds like they need low-level support, they'll have a home support assessment and be assessed for entry-level supports through the Commonwealth Home Support Program. And this is conducted by a RAS assessor, which is a Regional Assessment Service Assessor. And you'll find in aged care there are so many different acronyms. So it's like learning a new language. So they say RAS, but it is Regional Assessment Service Assessor. So if a person, if it sounds like they have higher needs that can't be offered through that entry-level support, then My Aged Care may refer that person for a comprehensive assessment, and that's with the aged care assessment team. So they're also known as ACAT. A lot of people have heard that word bandied around. So that's for that higher level support that a person might need. But sometimes after a home support assessment with a RAS assessor, that assessor may determine that the program they're assessing for may not meet that person's needs. So they may on refer for an ACAT assessor. So if at first contact with My Aged Care, like I said, the progression generally is with a RAS assessor, or they may determine for that higher level assessment. A RAS assessor can also on refer to an ACAT assessor if they think that their program can't meet the needs, because that Commonwealth Home Support Program is very entry level, just for 1 or 2 services, but that comprehensive assessment that is conducted by an ACAT assessor, they can assess for home care packages, residential care, whether that be respite or permanent. So both of those packages are intended to support older people to stay living at home independently as they age and for as long as they choose. And the aim of the support is doing with and not for. So, for example, a person might be able to do their ironing and do their dusting, but they may, as I mentioned previously, have difficulty bending down and cleaning their shower cubicles. So it's not aimed to take away everything that you may have done over a lifetime. It's to work with you so that you can continue doing those things. So some of the services offered through these programs, they include cleaning, home maintenance, garden maintenance, transport, social group activities and outings, meal delivery service, shopping, physiotherapy, and equipment such as grab rails in the home to make it safer. So I've mentioned a lot there, and we will go onto the My Aged Care website shortly, and we'll have a look at more of those services that might be available to people.
Okay, great. So it is about, I guess, services and supports that work with an older person to help them live safely in their own home for longer, which is what people want.
That's it. Yeah. So
okay.
Let's have a look at the website.
Yeah, let's have a look at the website. There we go. I hope you can all see that.
So welcome to My Aged Care. We'll just have a little tour around here. So there are these tabs, and when you click on a tab, of course, then there's the drop down that you can gain more information on a certain topic. There's a search function, so if you can't remember exactly what you're after, you know, you've heard something that someone's told you, you might want to go into a bit more detail, you can just put that in there. And over here we have information in different languages.
I think that's hidden by our little screen there at the moment, but that's
behind
okay.
Us there. It says languages.
Oh, good.
And also there's the print functionality there. So there's some information that you find that you want to print off. You can do that. And I thought we'd just have a little look at this video here, find out how My Aged Care can help you.
screen.
I'll just get out of there.
So if that wasn't visible for you, or if you couldn't hear that, you're most welcome to go to the website and have a look at that. But it's a really good, just a basic video that tells us about My Aged Care. And while we're looking at My Aged Care, Trudy, I can see it's a really useful, sort of easy to read website. There's lots of space, and it's easy to scroll through and find and read some information.
There is lots of information, and it is easy to find. I think drilling down to your specific requirements is important because, like you say, it is simple, but it can be overwhelming because there is so much information. So I think in line with this webinar is just starting at the beginning, if that's where you're at, and just dipping in each time you need to know something, because there's so much information, it can be overwhelming there.
Yeah, and you're right about that sort of language and some of those acronyms and some of the language that's used as well. If you're not sure, write something down and see if you can find out more on this website, or you could call COTA as well, and we'll help you with breaking down that sort of information. That's great. Thank you, Trudy.
Okay.
All right, can we exit that now, that shared screen?
No.
I think you click on the green share. Yeah, that one. Oops, bear with us, people. A red button. Oh, there we go. There we are. Okay, we're learning as we go, aren't we?
We know about aged care, but we're not good with tech.
That's all right. Everything's a good learning experience. All right. So one of the things, of course, Trudy, as we know, a lot of older people aren't online, or maybe don't have a computer or a smartphone. So how would someone that's not online find out that wealth of information that is on that website? How else does someone find out information about aged care?
Yeah, so you can ring My Aged Care to ask questions. They've heard everything and they're there to help you. So once again, the My Aged Care number's there. They're open Monday to Saturday, so 8 to 8 p.m. Weekdays, and 10 o'clock till 2 p.m. on Saturdays. They're closed public holidays. And you can also go to your GP or speak to the practice nurse, or of course you can call COTA SA, and we're happy to answer questions as well. The thing is with My Aged Care, if you ring them and you're not registered with them, they might invite you to register at the same time. And if you're just ringing to get some general information, you may not want to register. So you can decline that. But, once you've got the questions that you want answered and you are ready to register, that's another call back to My Aged Care. So we've been through the My Aged Care website. If you don't have a computer in your own home, you might go to a library. That's another good resource there. And that's generally how you start the process.
And I know I've sat down with my dad, for instance, and we've looked at the website together and looked at some information that way. That's a really good way, because there is just such a wealth of information on that website. And when things change as well, that's where information, that's the most current information. So it is really good to go to that website. And so what you're saying, Trudy, is that when you call My Aged Care, you can actually upfront say, I'm ringing today for information, I'm ringing with some questions, and you can actually outwardly say, I don't want to register today, or I'm not registered and I don't want to do that today, but I just have some questions. That might be a good way.
And then once you've got that information, like what I find really useful is that people talk to their family or friends who have already engaged with My Aged Care, or for example, get further answers from COTA or the GP, and just to cement in a person's mind that they've got a bit more confidence and know the sorts of questions that they want to ask My Aged Care when they actually then do register at a later stage.
Yeah, definitely pays to be prepared for that. Okay, so what are the sorts of basic things about aged care that we can share today with our audience before perhaps ringing My Aged Care or looking for more information?
Okay, just some notes I've made. That a person has to be 65 years or older, or 50 and over for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. You can pay for services privately, like you don't have to go through the aged care system. If it's something you don't want to be involved with, you can pay for services privately. And it's based on your personal circumstances and individualised. Like you might have heard that someone, your neighbour has this service or whatever, but it doesn't mean that you will necessarily get the same service because it is assessed on your needs. The cost varies depending on the care you're eligible for, the provider that you go with, and a provider is an aged care providing organisation, and also your financial situation. The Commonwealth Home Support Program, which is that entry-level support, that's not means tested, and the services are provided at low cost. A home care package is means tested, and depending on the person's financial circumstances, they may be asked to contribute towards the cost of the home care package. We've got some booklets here, and after each assessment, the assessor who does, this is the Commonwealth Home Support Program, but they would leave that booklet in the home for you to have a look at. But if you're wanting to have a look at that before, because it actually, it's not very thick, but it's quite broad in the information, and we have copies of that we can send out, or you can go online as well under My Aged Care Resources, and then they have a list of all their guides. So today we've been speaking about these two programs. So this is the entry-level support with the Commonwealth Home Support Program, and this is the higher level home care packages, and this is a guide on that, and it talks about like the funding that's attached to a home care package and how the system works. So they're really useful resources. And so the other thing that I would just say with that we can help people prepare that call for My Aged Care if they're wanting some support with that.
Can I just go back to the different services, Trudy? And this is something we'll probably expand on a lot more in next week's session, but just about the difference between the entry-level services called the Commonwealth Home Support Program and the home care package services. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion about what services am I getting, or what services am I eligible for, or what can I expect? And I guess, and you mentioned, Trudy, that Commonwealth Home Support Program or entry-level services is about having one or two services that you pay a little bit towards each time, and that might be a transport service, or it might be a little bit of domestic assistance. Oh, it sounded like a New Zealander then. It's domestic assistance, or it could be social support in the way of social groups and things that are run outside in the community come under that program as well. And also that you mentioned grab rails and things like that as well. That's something that can come under that program as well. And so tell us a bit more about home care packages. What's the difference with that to home care packages?
Okay, so as I mentioned, the Commonwealth Home Support Program is just entry-level services. Generally, it's one or two services. People are fairly independent, but they just need a couple of things. For example, you mentioned grab rails, or wanting to be more social. But if someone has higher needs, that's when an ACAT assessor would assess for a home care package. And there are different levels of a home care package. So there's level 1 through to 4, with 4 being the highest level of funding attributed to that package. And currently the government puts in like a high level 4 package. It's around $54,000 per year that a person is given. And I say it goes into an invisible bank account because it doesn't go into that person's own bank account. It's administered by the government, and it accrues over each week and fortnight that a person would end up having $54,000 towards their services. The way that the package is managed is through an aged care providing organisation. So a person would have a dedicated coordinator who would manage their budget to make sure that the services a person needs can be paid for from the home care package. Just as, you know, in our own personal life, we don't want to overspend because something we might need in the future, there might not be enough money for that. So they work with you to develop a plan so that your current needs are met, and work out if there's anything that you might need, for example, equipment like a gopher, or equipment in the home. So all of that can be paid for from the home care package. And that booklet is, like I said, really good in regards to giving a general overview of what a home care package involves.
That's quite comprehensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. We've also got here what's called the Aged Care Guide. That's an independent publication that's available as well for people, again, that might not be online. It's a really good one to learn a bit more about aged care, but also to find service providers and stuff. So we'll talk a bit more about that one in next week's session as well. But that's a really good, useful guide for people that aren't online as well. I'm just monitoring if there's any questions at this point. No, but feel free to pop something in the chat box if you do have any questions as we go. Okay, so all right.
So I just wanted to say that we can help people prepare for that phone call with My Aged Care. They can contact us, or they can go onto our website. We have information sheets on there and lots of resources as well. And we can also post out some booklets.
Yes.
So feel free to contact us for that information. And I suppose the thing that's important to know, if you're not registered with My Aged Care, we touched on preparing for that first phone call to My Aged Care and the sorts of things that you'll need to participate in that screening conversation. So you need to be ready to give your personal details. I want your date of birth, your address. You need to have your Medicare card ready. They need to identify you with that, and have an idea about what you need help with. So we've gone through some of the things, like I said, those booklets sort of outline a bit more about the sorts of services that can be obtained through the aged care system. So, and talk to friends and family about their experiences as well with My Aged Care. You can also have a support person with you if you're wanting a family member as well. I always find it really useful to have someone else in the conversation, because then when the assessor goes, you've got the two of you to go over that conversation and make sense of it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and just have a list of questions that you might like to discuss as well.
So, Trudy, if I'm thinking about my dad again, would I be able to ring My Aged Care and register my dad for services?
You could, but he would need to be there with you. So
okay,
that's important. You can't just register on someone's behalf. They need to be there with you. And also, there is a the functionality of being a representative for someone, which means if you are working with your dad to get the supports that he needs, but he's not feeling confident or has the time or wanting to, for whatever reason, continue that dialogue with My Aged Care. If you're registered as a representative, you can speak to My Aged Care on his behalf without him being present. Otherwise, there's this, that's privacy and confidentiality, which makes sense. But if you're not registered as a representative, you would have to be with your father every time you wanted to make a phone call and get some information. And your father would have to give My Aged Care consent to share that information. So it's just another little hack for making things easier for people.
Yeah, it can be easier, can't it? And I certainly wouldn't talk about my dad without his consent and without knowing what his needs and what his wishes are, because I would absolutely want to respect that for sure. That's a good idea. Thank you. That's probably all we've got for today. So thank you, Trudy. Thank you for sharing your information with our participants today. And thank you for joining us today, those of you that are with us. And I hope you got a better understanding or certainly a bit about what aged care is and how you get started. We can send a copy of this webinar if you like, and you're most welcome to contact COTA SA with any further questions if you want more information about those sorts of things. And that could be around, understanding the language around aged care or where to find more information. Certainly we can post out some of these booklets if you like as well, if you're not online. Given that you're all online today, I would urge you to visit the COTA SA website as well. We've got lots of good information on there, and we'll always add to that as well and give you more and more information. So that's cotasa.org.au. That's COTASA.org.au, and you can search. We've got a search bar where you can search for Let's Talk Aged Care, or you can click on menu, programs and services, and then on Let's Talk Aged Care. So we've got some videos, some fact sheets and some links, direct links to other services and supports as well. We also recommend you go to that My Aged Care website that we looked at very briefly today and just have a play around in there. Have a read. I mean, you can't really go wrong just clicking on the different tabs, searching for things you might like to search for, and having a read and taking some notes and trying to work out, you know, what it's all about. And I guess that's important. Also, if you're not at that point yet where you need aged care services, it's good to have this knowledge beforehand as well. So that's a good thing to do. That's the My Aged Care website there. It's myagedcare.gov.au, and that's where you go for that. And alternatively, again, there's the My Aged Care call centre line. That is a free call and available during the times that Trudy mentioned, which was weekdays 8 till 8 and Saturdays 10 till 2. So lots of times that's available. It's a national call centre, so you get different people every time. But you get to speak to a person and they'll speak to you at length. And again, if you're not ready to register at that time, you can say, I'm just asking some questions today, please, and that's a good way to go. Next Wednesday, the 11th of May, we'll be talking a bit more about finding aged services that are right, aged care services that are right for you. So that might be at the point where you've registered with My Aged Care, you've had an assessment, which could be either that lower level service assessment or the higher level, the comprehensive assessment with the ACAT assessor. The next, we'll be going in depth about what is the next part then. What do we do after that? How do we find the services and supports that are right for me? We know, certainly Trudy and our Let's Talk Aged Care team know lots about what services and supports are available. Both what's advertised and what is actually available can be different as well. So we can talk through a bit about that as well. If you've registered for that, that's fabulous. You'll receive a link to the webinar like you did today. But if you haven't registered for that one, you are most welcome to, and you can register through Eventbrite. And again, that link and the information is on the COTA SA website under the Let's Talk Aged Care page, or the events page, I should say. So thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great afternoon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Trudy. Bye.